1:19 a.m. The Taiwan Strait, 61 nautical miles northwest of Taipei. The strait here is 130 kilometers wide and shallow, rarely more than 70 meters to the sandy bottom. A constrained body of water that has been the most militarily contested maritime geography on Earth for the better part of 8 decades. The surface temperature is 23 degrees Celsius. Wind at 7 knots from the northeast. Sea state 1, almost perfectly calm, the kind of flat water that is a sailor's comfort and a tactician's nightmare, because calm water means no wave clutter to hide in, no interference to mask a radar return, no environmental noise to drown an engine. Every contact on the surface of the Taiwan Strait tonight is naked to whoever is watching. The USS Mustin, DDG-89, an Arleigh Burke-class Flight 2, a guided missile destroyer, holds a steady course at 15 knots on a southerly heading, conducting a routine freedom of navigation operation through the Taiwan Strait, the third such transit in the past 45 days. Alongside her, in a loose formation, the USS Benfold, DDG-65, a second Arleigh Burke, 3 nautical miles to the east, radar in active search mode, her own AN/SPY-1D sweeping the airspace and surface environment in synchronized coordination with the Mustin's sensor picture via Link 16. Above them, at 28,000 feet, invisible and tireless, an E-2D Advanced Hawkeye from Carrier Air Wing 5 aboard the USS Ronald Reagan, operating 300 nautical miles to the east in the Philippine Sea, pushes its APS-145 radar picture into the Linky 16 network, giving both destroyers a real-time air and surface picture extending 200 miles in every direction. The 2 destroyers are not alone in the strait. They are the visible part of a system that extends from the sea floor to the stratosphere. The People's Liberation Army had been studying American freedom of navigation operations in the Taiwan Strait for years. Every transit was cataloged. Every sensor emission was recorded. Every ship's course, speed, and formation geometry was analyzed. They knew the radar sweep intervals of the AN/SPY-1D. They knew the SH-60B helicopter patrol patterns. They knew the standard communication frequencies and the typical reaction times from contact detection to weapons employment. They had built, over 18 months, a model of exactly how an American destroyer pair conducts a straight transit, and they had designed a weapon specifically to exploit what they believed was the transit's most vulnerable moment. The quiet hours between midnight and 4 a.m., when the surface environment was calm, the crew was at reduced readiness, and the psychological weight of 11 weeks of deployment sat on every watchstander's shoulders like a physical object. The weapon was called the JARI, the Jiao Ren Y, or Mermaid Y, an autonomous surface vehicle developed by the PLA Navy's research institutes in Wuhan and tested extensively in the South China Sea over the previous 2 years. The JARI was not a large vehicle. It was 7 meters long, displacing 4 tons, powered by a diesel-electric hybrid drive that gave it a range of 800 kilometers at cruise speed and a sprint capability of 42 knots for short engagements. Its hull was built from radar-absorbent composite materials, giving it a radar cross-section of approximately 0.1 square meters, roughly equivalent to a large seabird or a small fishing buoy. Its onboard sensor suite included a GPS receiver, an inertial navigation system, a forward-looking electro-optical and infrared camera array, a millimeter-wave radar for terminal guidance, and a passive acoustic receiver tuned to the specific propulsion noise signatures of Arleigh Burke-class destroyers. It was designed to operate autonomously in swarms, coordinating its approach geometry via encrypted short-range data link, selecting the optimal attack angle in real time based on the target ship's maneuver and behavior. Each JARI carried 800 kilograms of TATB, insensitive high explosive in a shaped charge configuration optimized for hull penetration at the waterline. Not a warhead designed to destroy a destroyer in a single hit. A warhead designed to hold the hull at the waterline, flood a compartment, and deny propulsion, leaving the ship dead in the water, mission killed, the crew fighting flooding while the second wave arrived. At 1:19 a.m., 41 JARI autonomous surface vehicles launched from 3 concealed positions along the Chinese coast. Converted fishing vessel tenders anchored in the dark water near Pingtan Island, Nanri Island, and a third position 20 nautical miles south. The launches are staggered across a 90-second window. The vehicles deploy from their launch cradles at low speed, electric motors only for the first 3 minutes, before transitioning to diesel propulsion for the high-speed approach. 41 vehicles. Sprint speed 42 knots. Distance to target 22 nautical miles. Time to impact approximately 31 minutes. The PLA planners had been confident. They believed they had made the perfect weapon for the perfect environment. They had made 5 catastrophic mistakes. The first mistake, the calm water. The Taiwan Strait's glass-flat surface at 1:19 a.m. was not a concealment environment for the JARI. It was a presentation environment. A 7-meter vessel displacing 4 tons moving at 42 knots on flat water produces a wake pattern that is visible to an airborne radar from 40 miles. The E-2D Advanced Hawkeye at 28,000 feet, whose APS-145 radar had been specifically upgraded after 2022 with a maritime surface search enhancement mode, following threat assessments of exactly this class of autonomous surface vehicle, detected the JARI launch transients within 11 seconds of the first vehicle entering the water. The wake signatures of 41 vehicles moving at speed on flat water was not a subtle contact. It was a wall of white lines on the radar display, radiating outward from 3 source points on the Chinese coast like the spokes of a wheel. The second mistake, the radar cross-section. The JARI's 0.1 square meter RCS had been validated against shore-based S-band search radars operating in standard detection modes. It had not been validated against the AN/SPY-1D operating with its surface search enhancement software against the E-2D's APS-145 in maritime surveillance mode, or against the AN/SPS-73 surface search radar aboard the USS Mustin that had been specifically configured for small craft detection following Red Sea threat experiences. The JARI was stealthy against the radars the PLA had tested against. It was not stealthy against the radars it actually faced tonight. The third mistake, the data link. The 41 JARI vehicles coordinated their approach geometry via an encrypted short-range data link operating at 5.8 GHz, a frequency band that the AN/SLQ 32V6 shipboard electronic warfare system aboard the USS Mustin monitors continuously. The data link emissions were detected within 40 seconds of the first vehicle going to sprint speed. The signals were classified, in type if not in content, within 4 minutes. The EW team aboard the Mustin knew the swarm was networked. They knew its coordination frequency. They knew that disrupting that frequency would degrade swarm coordination. The SLQ-32's jamming suite began targeting the 5.8 GHz band at 1:23 a.m., 4 minutes before the swarm reached effective weapons range, filling the coordination channel with structured noise that progressively degraded the swarm's ability to maintain coherent approach geometry. The fourth mistake, the TATB warhead sizing. 800 kilograms of shaped charge explosive against an Arleigh Burke's hull was calculated to cause mission kill flooding damage. The calculation was based on peacetime structural data derived from open-source hull specifications and the estimated thickness of the destroyer's hull plating in the waterline section. It did not account for the USS Mustin's internal damage control configuration, which had been updated during her last yard period with additional internal subdivision and a quick-close valve system in the flooding-prone engineering spaces. More critically, it did not account for the fact that a destroyer at general quarters, with all watertight integrity closures made, is a fundamentally different structural target than a destroyer in routine transit. The damage model was built on the wrong baseline. The fifth mistake, the mistake from which all others cascaded, was the assumption of surprise. The PLA planners had built their entire operational timeline around the 11-second window between the JARI's radar detection range and the destroyer's weapons response time. 11 seconds from detection to engagement in their model was not enough time. They were wrong by a factor of 20. The E-2D had been watching the coast since 10 p.m. The USS Mustin's SH-60B helicopter had been on patrol since 11:30 p.m. The Linka 16 network connected every sensor to every shooter instantaneously. There was no 11-second window. There was no window at all. The swarm was detected, classified, and had a coordinated defense plan assigned to it before it reached 20 nautical miles from the ships. At 1:19 a.m. and 55 seconds, less than 60 seconds after the first JARI entered the water, the E-2D crew transmits the contact report. Mustin, Benfold, Eagle Eye. I have 41 surface contacts, 3 source points, Pingtan, Nanri, and Datum South. Contacts are moving, bearing 095 through 120, speed building through 30 knots. Wake patterns consistent with autonomous surface vehicle swarm. Count is 41. Time to weapons range approximately 30 minutes. The Mustin's tactical action officer does not need 30 minutes. He needs 40 seconds. General quarters. All hands to battle stations. This is not a drill. Benfold, this is Mustin TAO. I have 41 ASV contacts inbound on 3 bearings. Coordinated engagement now. Request weapons free for surface engagement. The alarm drives through the Mustin. Hatches slam. Gun mounts train. The Mark 45 5-inch gun forward of the bridge comes alive, its autoloader cycling, the mount training to the bearing of the nearest contact cluster bearing. The 2 Phalanx CIWS systems, normally configured for aerial threat engagement, switch to surface mode. A configuration change accomplished in software in 3 seconds that redirects their targeting algorithm from airborne threats to fast surface contacts within 2,000 meters. The Mark 38 Mod 225mm chain gun stations, remote operated from inside the ship, trained to the contact bearings. And in the VLS cells, the Aegis combat system assigns engagement priorities to the 41 contacts, computing optimal intercept solutions for the RIM-116 roll-in airframe missile battery in surface attack mode, a capability that had been added to the RAM Block 2's software suite, specifically to engage fast surface threats including autonomous surface vehicles. The SH-60B Seahawk helicopter on patrol northeast of the formation receives its tasking update via data link at 1:20 a.m. The crew, pilot, co-pilot, sensor operator, has been briefed on the ASV threat profile. The helicopter carries AGM-114M Hellfire 2 missiles, multi-purpose warhead, laser-guided, with a secondary electro-optical mode enabled by the helicopter's FLIR targeting system. Against a 7-meter surface vehicle with a diesel engine running hot in the calm water, the FLIR produces a clean thermal target. The helicopter turns south and begins its attack approach at 120 feet altitude, well below the JARI's radar detection threshold. At 1:22 a.m., weapons free is authorized across the formation. The engagement begins simultaneously on 4 different weapon systems, on 2 ships with a helicopter, in a coordinated kill web that the JARI swarm has no framework to defeat. The SH-60B engages first. At 4 nautical miles from the lead contact cluster, 9 JARIs in a spread formation aimed directly at the Mustin's bow, the Seahawk's sensor operator designates the lead vehicle with the laser targeting system and fires. The first AGM-114M reaches its target in 6 seconds. The JARI disintegrates in a fireball that is visible to the bridge watch on both destroyers. The helicopter transitions immediately to the next target. Second Hellfire. Third, the Seahawk carries 8 Hellfire missiles. 8 targets. The crew fires them in a rhythm of 1 every 4 seconds, slewing the laser designation between targets with smooth, practiced efficiency. 8 kills in 32 seconds. The USS Benfold's Mark 45 5-inch gun opens fire at 1:23 a.m. against the southern contact cluster. 16 JARIs approaching from bearing 120 at 40 knots. The Mark 45 fires at a rate of 20 rounds per minute, each 54-kilogram round, reaching its target in approximately 3 seconds at the engagement ranges involved. The gun's fire control system tracks the targets via the ship's AN/SPY-1D and the E-2D's surface picture, updating the aiming solution 30 times per second. The first round is a near miss. The JARI's speed in the flat water make for a clean ballistic solution, but the vehicle's small size means the first adjustment round is required to calibrate. The second round is a direct hit. The third, fourth, and fifth are sequential kills at 10-second intervals as the gun walks through the contact line. The southern cluster is down to 11 vehicles by 1:24 a.m. The USS Mustin's Mark 45 engages the center cluster. 18 JARIs on bearing 105. The gun fires at the same 20-round-per-minute rate, its crew running the loading cycle with the mechanical precision of a system that has drilled this exact engagement hundreds of times. The gun kills the first contact at 1:23 a.m. and 17 seconds. It kills the second at 1:23 a.m. and 27 seconds. The kills come at intervals determined by the gun's traverse rate and the fire control solution update cycle. 8 vehicles destroyed in the first 90 seconds of gun engagement, but the swarm is closing. 42 knots. The range is shrinking at 700 meters per minute. At 1:24 a.m., the leading elements of the center cluster are inside 7 nautical miles of the Mustin. Ram block 2 fires from the Mustin's starboard launcher. 4 missiles, 2-second intervals, each one targeted at a separate JARI in the leading cluster. The rolling airframe missile, in surface attack mode, uses its passive radar seeker to home on the electromagnetic emissions of the JARI's millimeter-wave terminal guidance radar, the same sensor the vehicle uses to lock onto the ship in its final approach, turning the JARI's own guidance system into a beacon that leads the ram directly to the target. 4 missiles. 4 kills. The ram launcher reloads in 12 seconds and fires 4 more. 3 kills. One miss as a JARI executes a random terminal evasion maneuver programmed into its autonomous guidance algorithm. The Phalanx CIWS on the Mustin's port side acquires the evading JARI at 3,000 meters. Surface mode. The Gatling barrel spins to 4,500 rounds per minute. A 2-second burst of 20mm tungsten impacts the vehicle at 2,800 meters. The JARI's fuel tank detonates at 1:26 a.m. The leading element of the northern cluster, 12 JARAs that have been approaching on bearing 095, slightly north of the main axis, reaches 6 nautical miles from the Benfold. The Benfold's ram launcher fires a 6-missile salvo. 5 kills. One vehicle survives the salvo and continues inbound at 42 knots, its data link coordination signal degraded by the SLQ-32 jamming to the point where it is running on its last known course rather than actively tracking the Benfold. It is running toward the Benfold's original position, which the ship has vacated by executing a hard turn to starboard. The JARI passes 200 meters astern of the Benfold, running west, runs for another 3 minutes until its fuel is exhausted, and sinks. By 1:28 a.m., 9 minutes after the first JARI hit the water, the engagement picture is dramatically reduced. The SH-60B has expended its 8 Hellfire missiles and is returning to refuel. The Mustin's Mark 45 has fired 41 rounds and achieved 22 kills. The Benfold's Mark 45 has fired 37 rounds and achieved 19 kills. The 2 ram launchers between the ships have fired 22 missiles and achieved 19 kills. The Phalanx systems have engaged 7 close-in targets and achieved 7 kills. The SLQ-32 jamming has degraded swarm coordination so severely that 16 of the surviving vehicles have lost coherent approach geometry and are running on pre-programmed courses that no longer correspond to the ship's actual positions. They are chasing ghosts in the flat Taiwan Strait water. At 1:29 a.m., a second SH-60B launches from the Benfold's flight deck with a fresh Hellfire load and begins hunting the disoriented survivors. 8 vehicles killed in the next 11 minutes, each one running a confused autonomous search pattern that brings it predictably within the helicopter's engagement range. At 1:31 a.m., the Mustin's forward Mark 38 25mm chain gun engages 3 vehicles that have entered the close-in zone within 1 nautical mile, running disoriented. The chain gun fires at 200 rounds per minute, its EO/IR targeting system tracking the vehicle's thermal signature. 3 vehicles in 3 minutes. At 1:41 a.m., the last surviving JARI, vehicle number 41, running on backup inertial navigation after its GPS receiver was disrupted by the SLQ-32's jamming in the final approach phase, is detected by the E-2D at 4 nautical miles northeast of the Benfold, running a circular search pattern at reduced speed, its fuel state critical. The Benfold's Mark 45 engages it with a single round at 1:42 a.m. 1 round. 1 kill. 1:42 a.m. 23 minutes after the first JARI left its cradle. All 41 autonomous surface vehicles destroyed or neutralized. 0 reached either ship. 0 American casualties. USS Mustin, no damage. USS Benfold, no damage. The tactical action officer on the Mustin keys his radio. Strike Group, Mustin TAO. All 41 ASV contacts destroyed or neutralized. 0 hull contact. 0 casualties. Both ships fully mission capable. Request authorization for Response Strike Delta. The authorization arrives in 40 seconds. Response Strike Delta had been built specifically for the Taiwan Strait autonomous vehicle threat scenario. A targeting package maintained in permanent readiness at Pacific Fleet, updated monthly, containing current GPS coordinates for the autonomous surface vehicle tender vessels, their shore support infrastructure, the command and control facility managing the JARI program's operational assets, and the Research Institute in Wuhan, where the next-generation JARI variants were being developed. At 1:43 a.m., the USS Mustin opened 16 VLS cells, 16 Tomahawk. Block 5 land attack missiles climbed skyward in a 19-second ripple, each one transitioning to terrain following cruise flight at 550 knots over the Taiwan Strait, turning northwest toward the Chinese coast. First target package. The 3 JARI tender vessels still anchored at Pingtan Island, Nanri Island, and the southern datum position. The tenders are large converted fishing vessels, each carrying cradles for up to 20 JARI vehicles. Intelligence assessed each tender as carrying additional JARI vehicles in pre-launch configuration. 4 Tomahawks per tender. The vessels are surface targets. The Block 5 warheads terminal attack profile is adjusted for surface ship targeting, with fusing set for contact detonation and a secondary delay charge for below waterline penetration. All 3 tenders sink within 12 minutes of the first Tomahawk impact. Second target package. The shore-based command and control facility at Pingtan Island that had been coordinating the JARI swarm operation. A hardened building with satellite communications arrays identified in satellite imagery 48 hours earlier. 4 Tomahawks. The communications arrays take the first warhead. The main building takes the second and third. The backup generator facility takes the fourth. Third target package. The JARI program's forward maintenance and storage facility at Changle, Fujian Province, a coastal warehouse complex where assembled JARI vehicles were stored prior to transfer to the tender vessels. 6 Tomahawks. The storage warehouses take direct hits. Secondary detonations as stored JARI fuel and warhead components detonate confirm complete destruction of the facility's inventory. USS Benfold fires 12 Tomahawks at 1:45 a.m. against a 4th target package. The PLA, Navy's electronic warfare coordination facility at Fuzhou that had been supporting the JARI operations jamming and navigation denial component, a facility whose radar and communications emissions had been cataloged by the USS Mustin's SLQ-32 system during the attack and cross-referenced against the pre-built target database in real time. At 1:55 a.m., 4 F-35Cs from the USS Ronald Reagan's Air Wing, which had been holding at Combat Air Patrol altitude 100 nautical miles to the east, push west and deliver 16 GBU 38 500-pound JDAMs against 2 PLA, Navy fast attack craft that had been positioned as a surface escorts for the JARI tender vessels, and that had, following the destruction of the tenders, attempted to recover south at maximum speed. Both fast attack craft are destroyed. By 2:06 a.m., 47 minutes after the first JARI contact was detected, the counterstrike is complete. Battle damage assessment, compiled by Pacific Fleet Intelligence at 4 a.m. from satellite imagery, E-2D post-strike radar tracking, and signals intelligence from the SLQ-32 intercept record. 3 JARI tender vessels sunk. JARI Shore Command Facility at Pingtan destroyed, communications eliminated. Changle Forward Storage Facility destroyed, assessed complete inventory loss. Fuzhou EW Coordination Facility destroyed. 2 PLA Navy fast attack craft destroyed. Estimated JARI vehicles destroyed in storage at Changal, 22 to 30 additional vehicles. Total JARI autonomous surface vehicle program assets destroyed or damaged, assessed at 60 to 70% of operational inventory. Estimated PLA Navy personnel killed in action, 41 to 63. American losses, 0. USS Mustin, 0 damage. USS Benfold, 0 damage. Freedom of navigation transit, completed on schedule at 3:44 a.m. In the Combat Information Center of the USS Mustin, the watch relief proceeds at 2 a.m. on schedule. The fresh watch team takes their stations. The SPY-1D sweeps the Taiwan Strait. The E-2D's picture feeds into the Link 16 display. Clean, clear, no threats. A fishing boat running south toward Kaohsiung. A container ship transiting north toward Shanghai. A Coast Guard vessel holding station near Penghu. The strait is open. It stays open. The USS Mustin holds her southerly course at 15 knots, her wake white and clean on the black water, her radar sweeping without pause, her crew at modified readiness, ready to do it again. The PLA planners in Beijing will study the engagement record from this night for years. They will study the E-2D's detection timeline. They will study the SLQ-32 jamming effect on the JARI data link. They will study the coordinated kill web that distributed the engagement across 4 weapon systems simultaneously. And they will understand, or they will not and will attempt again and receive the same answer, that the Taiwan Strait is not an ambush corridor. It is an American and Allied operating environment. Everything in it is watched. Everything that launches from its shores is tracked from the moment it moves. And everything that aims itself at a United States Navy warship in international waters finds the same mathematical truth at the end of its run. 42 knots is fast for a surface vehicle. It is not fast enough. It has never been fast enough. It will never be fast enough. The Mustin sails south. The strait stays open.